Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Well, thank you for coming out this evening for the continuation of our prayer series. I called the talk tonight Portal of Prayer, and I'll explain why. I really want to give prayer a better reputation than I think it might have among you. Prayer sometimes has all kinds of connotations. Sometimes it's set up to be so much harder than it has to be, that there's a special way to do it, that there's a way that you kind of, the words you use matter. So don't mess up and use the wrong words, and also, hold your mouth just right, and sit in the attitude, and we get it mixed up with meditation. Is it different? Is it not? All that kind of stuff. But I'd really like you to know that you were born to pray. You're born into prayer. Prayer brought you into this world. Prayer will take you out of this world. Prayer lifts you up all the time because there is a way in which you get in touch with that portal to the divine understanding, to the divine mind. Let me talk about that. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my story and my path of prayer so you can find your place in it, so that you can kind of see how far you've come, just so that you know what I'm about to tell you this evening is true for you. The first part is that I was raised Catholic, and in the Catholic Church, they didn't trust us to pray with our own words very much. So they gave us words, and they gave us prayers to memorize. That as soon as I was in school, and I went to Catholic school, as soon as I went into first grade, I had learned how to pray the Hail Mary, the Our Father, that's what we called it, the Our Father, then some various sundry other prayers that were written by saints through the ages, and they were elected and blessed and ordained and verified that these are holy words that we should all learn, and so we could memorize those as well. I'm not suggesting that we weren't there was any prayer police or anything like that would keep me from making my own private prayers, but I didn't really have confidence in that. I wasn't really taught or encouraged very much, at least from what I understood. I thought prayer was a very specific function, and the specific function involved repetitive prayer. And so I also learned how to pray on the rosary, and the rosary are beads that are very common in certain other traditions, in Hindu and Buddhism as well. Prayer beads come in other traditions in addition to that, but they are with specific designation for prayer at each of those junctures, and just so happens they're all the prayers they taught us. So we got to say them over and over again, and in repeating those prayers, we actually entered into something that is called meditation, and I was even taught that we were meditating on the rosary. And I was like, well, I'm not meditating on the rosary. But of course you are, because your fingers move from one bead to the other as you complete a prayer, and it becomes very repetitive, monotonous. And what happens when things give your brain something to do in a monotonous way? The rest of you has free reign and can go somewhere else. And so there was a lot. I still remember this beautiful rosary that my grandmother gave all the granddaughters. They were those kind of crystal beads, and they were many-faceted. And so when I would be doing the rosary, which I didn't really want to do, and we were kneeling by the bed in my parents' room and leaning on there and using our rosaries, the only real joy that I found in doing it was that the beads were reflecting the light, and there were little rainbows in my beads. And I tell you what, I could do that all day. So, little did they know they were preparing me to be a crystal, a church that does crystals and that kind of thing. Little did they know that they're responsible for me being in unity. So the thing about beads and rosary and all of that was really another tool for prayer, and it was really helpful. And what I want to say is that all of that really prepared me for understanding that prayer really transcends the form. What I found is that prayer is a natural state in us. When I could get past the God-Jesus conflation that I also was taught, because Jesus said before Moses, I am, might remember some of that, Jesus became, in theology, in the Catholic theology at least, and I've heard it in some other traditions, conflated with the creator function of God, the transcendent. So in the Catholic Church, Jesus and God were really pretty much used interchangeably. Jesus created the heaven and the earth, and I was like, now, at the time I totally bought it, but now I wince because it's like, well, I've been straightened out on that. It's like Jesus was a person who had the eternal Christ in him, and he was the perfect form of God through humanity. I still feel that way. I still believe that. But I don't really think Jesus claims creating the heavens and the earth necessarily, and that's not at all what he meant by that statement either. And so as I was able to kind of like break down who was God and Jesus and where does all that fit, when there were times that I didn't feel like I deserved the attention of either one of them. And so in the Catholic Church, very conveniently, they give you a big dose of guilt. They also give you intermediaries. So you get to have a priest or a nun, or you get to have a saint, a patron saint that you're named after, because Catholics are named after saints, and that becomes your patron saint. But you can choose any saint you want, really, or angels, or you can pray to Mary. And whoever it was that you felt like was a little closer to your level, to your station, to how you were feeling that day, or maybe what you needed, that wasn't expecting God to pay attention to you. Because actually, while I knew that God could do anything, I wasn't always sure God would do what I wanted. Or maybe not what I would think is good, or maybe what I wanted. Maybe God would say, oh, you want that? Well, here you go, And it's like, whoa, I didn't know that's what I was asking for. So I trickster God. I really kind of was afraid if I yank on the chain too hard, and I really didn't deserve, maybe. So God really was far away, far away. And so my theology really was kind of mixed up in that for a long time, and really until I got into ministerial school, frankly, until I could really start to untangle some of it and begin to look at it in a different way. Where I found true prayer, I found it naturally. I found it outdoors, while I was busy doing something. Almost anything, or I would get lost in it. I guess like meditating on the rosary, perhaps. Busy doing something outside, playing as a child, looking around, being bored. How many times? Oh, I'm so bored. Nothing to do. I'm going to go outside and walk around and just, wait to be, brought into outer space. I don't know, something's gonna happen. And what would happen is actually that I would get caught up in watching a tree blow in the wind, and it started to look like a person. And I would watch it, and it would flow, and it would move its fingers, and it would maybe even talk to me just a little bit. Not really, but just a little. And the clouds moving across the sky, they changed form, and they were something. And as the sky grew darker and the stars began to come out. Those bright lights in the sky that were bright even in San Antonio, even where I lived. At that time, still dark, still stars you could see. Or in my room when all the lights were out and it was dark, there would always be some ambient light somewhere, some source, something that suddenly took on a great strength, a part of the room I hadn't paid attention to that light was growing in. And the room was kind of transformed. I'd kind of forget what it really looked like in the light because suddenly now the light features were different. You know what I mean? It sort of changed what it was, where I was. How is that prayer? Daydreaming, just allowing yourself to go into a bigger space than your head, or than your life, or than your aches and pains, or than your fears, or than your worries, or than your relationships with people around you, where you could just let go and stretch out somehow. So what prayer is not, it's not special words. Although some may get us started or in the right direction, I don't discount words. I love words. I love words. I love letters that make up words. I love numbers. I love calculations. I love all those things. But they are not prayer. They're tools, and they're language. And that's what we use to describe things that are unseen. Prayer is not thoughts either, though in prayer they'll come filled often with wisdom and insight. Prayer is not always conversation. You know, some people say, I talk to God and God talks back, and I tell God all my problems and it makes me feel good. That is really awesome. That's a lovely relationship. I would say that is an important relationship building, if that's your form of prayer that you use, and I use it sometimes, especially when I'm very much in despair and I need some hope and I don't understand what's happening and I want some answers. And of course I will rail against the heavens like everyone else, or say, help me, or please fix this, or I don't know what to do, but you do, and you better get down here and do it. You know, that kind of thing. But that's not exactly prayer yet. Because prayer is a natural state that doesn't really have words. It has feeling. And it is a union of heart and mind. And it's a state of expansion that we slip into where we stop thinking and no words form. And we open ourselves to the vastness of goodness, of peace that passes all understanding, of love that filters in and soaks down into us where there wasn't any a few minutes before. It's an openness in mind and heart to the truth we say we know. We do know. We've learned it. We've perhaps learned it in classes here. Truth we've come to know through our own lives. The truth and understanding of what God is and what I believe God is and what I believe I am and what I believe we are in the world. All of those truths that we can speak to and talk about. But prayer is when we allow ourselves to feel them and feel the truth of them in times of struggle and challenge. Prayer is whatever faith we have that we are one with God and that we cannot be lost or excluded from that. That is our fear, that we'll be lost or excluded, not just from God, from each other, from good, from value, from the world, from life, whatever, wherever we're afraid. but it isn't true, and we know it's not true. But it's what we know that filters down into our hearts, into a palpable experience of knowing it's true, knowing that we know that we know. And we don't have to convince anybody because we're convinced. That's prayer. Whatever we trust, whatever trust we have, that presence is right here now, always. Whatever trust we have in that. When we remember to trust in that, when we remember that all my fears I just ran in my head right then was all untrue. And what is true? I'm in the presence right now. And so are you. We're in it together. We never left it. It never left us. We've been here all along. We've been loved and healed and whole and valued at an infinite level. We cannot be lost. And when we feel that, prayer. Right now. Whatever we need isn't done for us by asking outside of us. Whatever we need is done through us because we suddenly remembered the truth. And wisdom will come. And an ideal will come. And prosperity and a prosperous idea will remind us of all of the potential, not only in me, but outside of me and in the world, and all the abundance of ways the world operates. That it's not this narrow little dried up, hard little path that I saw was being my life and the only thing I have. What I forgot is that it's 360, that it's all around me, and all of these paths, more than I can name, more than I can know, are before me with my next step and my next choice. That's prayer. When I remember, anytime we remember a truth and we are at ease with it, peace, peace. Anytime you feel at peace, you have landed back in prayer. You have found your place again. Because that's the place where there's nothing. Yeah, there's still chaos swirling around you. There's still unanswered questions. There's still stuff that's going to need to be paid, things that are going to need to be done. Somebody's going to have to come and fix that. There's some healing that has to happen. Yeah, that's still out there, but in this moment, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm at peace. I'll figure it out. Something will happen. I'll meet the right person. I'll know. It'll be all right. Why? Because it's always been all right. Eventually. It worked out. It might have been rough going. It might have been stuff I would not put on anybody else, even my worst enemy. And yet, it turned out better than I thought it could. That's prayer. In the moment, we remember that because we're in our right mind again. Phillips Brooks says, "Do not pray for tasks equal to your powers. Pray for powers equal to your tasks. Then the doing of your work shall be no miracle. For you shall be the miracle." It's you. It's always been you. It's always been me. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been. Us waking up to who we are and what is true. And that's prayer. And whatever is true for us is true for whomever we love and care about as well. And in fact, true for everyone in the world, whether we know them or not, whether we like them or not, whether we would name them or not, no matter what they believe, no matter where they are, no matter what they do. They are made the same as you and me. And therefore, we can unite with their highest selves for the greatest good in the world, beyond whatever their personality or ego thinks or is doing. We can unite with that. And when we do, prayer is done. That's what prayer is. It's reminding and setting ourselves in alignment with what is deeply true. So finding your own portal of prayer. Let me talk about portal for a moment, since I named it that talk tonight. The talk that I can't talk. Uh-oh, I've got a whole nother page to do. You better hope I can start talking. In the shamanic teachings of indigenous peoples everywhere, there is a secret knowledge of portals to the lower world. Portals. There are passages where indigenous people have found out in the world little places. I often see them like in an old tree, in the base of a tree, and there'll be maybe some kind of wound in the tree that's been made in the bark, and it's kind of peeled open, and it's kind of hollow there. You've seen that, right? Where the exterior and the interior is kind of revealed, but it's old and it's healed over. And then somehow it looks like a tiny little majestic doorway for a very tiny little being, right? But you see, your spirit isn't limited by time or form. It's not in a shape or in a size. So you can shapeshift into this tiny little spot. Now it's your door. It's enormous, it's magnificent, and there's enough space for you to slip into and go to the other side. What other side? I don't know. You'll have to go there. Children do it all the time. You probably did it. You forgot you knew how. The created world is a living reminder of order and pattern and wisdom and nurture. It heals us. It nurtures us. To be there is to be reminded, this is who you are, dancing in the wind. You don't have any problems. It's not a hurricane this time. It's just the wind. But I'm here because I was here when the hurricane came too. But we made it, and now it's just the wind, right? That's what nature reminds us of. It reminds us that there's cycles and beauty and value. And so we can enter into the portal of prayer sitting in silence because we know how to do that, because we've been trained, or because we've remembered, or because actually, in truth, we've always known how to be quiet and in wonder when we sat outside. Henri Nouwen says, when we persevere with the help of a gentle discipline, just something that brings our attention inward, we slowly come to hear the still small voice and to feel the delicate breeze, and so to come to know the presence of love again. Silence, just like that. Walking or sitting in nature. Terry Tempest Williams says, the world is holy. We are holy. All life is holy. Daily prayers are delivered on the lips of breaking waves, the whisperings of grasses, the shimmering of leaves on the trees. On the trees. Doesn't it make you want to go out right now? You also know how to use all of your other tools, beautiful, lovely music that carries you away in your quiet time, candlelight, incense, the smell of something that changes the room, that arises, your soul reconnects with something, and you go back into a prayerful time of all the times when you burned a little bit of this smell, of this incense, to remind you to go into that special space and spiritual life, and the last time you meditated. It will take you there again and again and again and again and compound it in a cumulative way. Readings that lift your soul and inspire you, bring you out of your head of all the problems you have and remind you a simple truth right there on paper. Or journaling, letting go of some things just so you can get quiet for a little while. Eddie Hillison says, sometimes the most important thing in a whole day is the rest we take between 2 deep breaths. Let's do that now. 2 deep breaths. Okay, 3. Silence. Turning inwards in prayer. The Kiro Apache prayer is this. Looking behind, I'm filled with gratitude. Looking forward, I'm filled with vision. Looking upwards, I'm filled with strength. Looking within, I discover peace. Indigenous people from all cultures everywhere, they are our ancestors. They are our great-grandfathers, our great-grandmothers. They have been through the ages sending us this message and this reminder, and this is it. You are more than what you think. Course in Miracles lesson 182 says, I will be still an instant and go home. And that's prayer. You are the portal. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.